We turn to you, our rock and our refuge for strength and protection. Grant us the wisdom to navigate the path we know we must follow. Help us to wear the armor of courage as we face the evil that is determined to destroy our world. Surround us with your love and protection as we push forward to defeat the evil that is all around. With these battles, when these battles appear heavy on our hearts and minds, grant us the courage and vision of your love so that we can gain strength knowing you walk beside us. May your loving presence shield us from the arrows of evil and strengthen our resolve. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you. I'm sorry. And if anyone has not signed in, if you could just please pass this around. Thank you.
Okay, and I forgot to say, I'm Lisa Amatruda. I'm actually the chair of the Litchfield County Moms for Liberty chapter, and I'd like to welcome and thank all of you for coming. Many familiar faces and a few new faces. And go ahead if you want.
Christine DeChico, I'm Secretary, Moms for Liberty, Litchfield County.
Okay, and then I think I just want to make an announcement that we were kind of leaving to the end of the meeting. We're going to say now, so as we're waiting for a couple more of the guests to come up. So we actually fought to get a spot in this library because typically the library is intellectual freedom, but as we well know, that means intellectual freedom on the left, typically. And so we fought, and we're here, and we have a month for 2025, all except for January. It's the first Wednesday of the month. We will have a book that we will talk about it each month, and then we will also have our regular meetings. So you're welcome to join us in January. It's on the 8th because of the holiday, but every other month in 2025 will be right here in this room at 6 o'clock on the first Wednesday of each month. So that's what we're doing, and we're super happy about that. So our next meeting is January 8th at 6 p.m. right here, and the book will be The Indispensable Right, Free Speech in the Age of Rage by Jonathan Turley. And so we try to pick a variety of books, and tonight, actually I forgot my book at home, was the Black Eye for America by Harold Swain. And yeah, so we have a couple of people off that, and that very much dovetails into what our guest speakers are going to lead us through today in our discussions. And also and I'll put some pamphlets and business cards in the back that you can take a look at if you want to find out any more information about us. And then also there's some books back there that sometimes you don't believe it until you actually open your eyes and look at the books that are in our libraries and in our kids' schools. And so take a look at those as you're milling around as well. But next I want to introduce Linda Ritchie. She's going to come up and introduce maybe I guess we just got here. But if you want to come up and
anybody that didn't sign in, should they like to?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to mention one quick thing. I don't know if you get a chance, if any of you are on Facebook, to join our Facebook group, Moms for Liberty, Litchfield County. And I recently posted something. I put up from Moms for Liberty national post, I reposted it, about the content of these books that are in the schools. And I was flagged, I appealed the flag to Meta, and I was denied again. So I posted a screenshot. They said what I posted, the content was too sexually explicit to be allowed on Facebook. These are the exact same books they want on the shelves for kids to have access to.
in our schools.
So, food for thought.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, he is not here yet, but Dave Holman, who I've known for several years now, has quite a few friends down in Guilford, and they've been fighting this fight for years. Hank Capel, who is right here, who we figured the other ones are, they said 10 after at the latest, because traffic was horrible coming from Guilford, I guess. Yeah. But anyways, they're going to come up here, they're going to be a panel, they're going to share a little bit about themselves, and then they're going to share some of the things that they've experienced, what DEI and SEL is doing in the school systems, because they have been in, they've done FOIAs, they've done, he can tell you, lawsuits, they've done everything. So these men have been so involved. The first time I met Dave Pullman, I said to him, gee, Dave, we were just talking. I said, so how many children do you have? He said, I don't have children. I said, what? I said, you're involved with this? As involved as you are? He said, no, this is our next generation. It doesn't matter if you have children, whatever. It doesn't matter if you homeschool. It doesn't matter what you do. This is the generation that's going to be ruling our government in the future. So every single one of us should be a part of it. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. He has been so instrumental in so many different things. These men kind of took me under their wing, and when they were forming the Greater Education Council of Connecticut. And I said to them, they would send me things and I'd say, yeah, okay, I agree, because I said, you guys are so far above me in knowledge and experience and everything. But they've still been gracious just to say that I'm part of them. So anyways, that council is doing a lot, because we're now, for the first time, starting to connect all these small groups around Connecticut. And this is what we wanted for the last few years, is to connect everybody, because everybody was fighting these battles by themselves. So now, and this is why these men offered to come up here to tell some of the battles, and also to have a Q&A, because I know that a lot of you have questions and stuff. One of the things, like they said, the books on the table, you really need to look into them if you haven't ever. These are books that they fought against us at the high schools, and they said, you're banning books, and we said, no, age appropriate, that's all. And when you look at them, they're so extremely sexual, and my husband wouldn't even let me read them to them, because they're dirty. They're not just talking about sex and puberty. It's bad. That I couldn't believe they were on the shelves myself. Anyways, these books, we had Dr. Breen come 2 years ago now, I think it was, and he wrote this book, and it's on wokeness, critical race theory, and common sense. Stand with us, okay? And he has a lot of reading material in the back, but he also talks about the Nazi principle in back of it and everything. So these are free, okay? Because I did spill coffee on some of them, so you get a coffee when you added coffee. But if you have means and would like to donate, please give me money, and I'm giving it to Moms for Liberty, okay? Because these books we've paid for already and stuff, they're excellent books, even if you want to give them to other people that know. It's helping people to understand, because we're trying to educate. We have to educate people, because this is going to be a fight in Connecticut, particularly our state. Even if Trump gets rid of the federal education department, we have a huge fight here, because we can send things through that we've gotten showing you where we are in our leadership, and it's not good at all. It really isn't good. And this is a documentary that came from Enoch Times, and it was done by someone who's out of state. Oh, I should not. High school. So come on up here and
thank you, Linda, and thank you, Moms for Liberty. This is a great group. I'm very humbled and honored to be here, because I've been following what y'all have been doing nationally and locally for a while. I'm sure y'all read that great Wall Street Journal piece on Moms for Liberty. We're so glad to see a great media like that put it out there. So who am I? Why am I here? I think that's what a vice presidential candidate said in the debate a few who am I? Why am I here? I'm a retired federal prosecutor. I worked with the Department of Justice for 31 years, prosecuting various crimes in Washington, D.C. Then I moved up to Rhode Island. I'm originally a Massachusetts kid. And when I met my now wife and stepdaughter, Dawn, and a lovely daughter, Rebecca, who was in Connecticut, we blended the family by settling near New Haven. And so I've been a Woodbury guy for about 21 years, and really have loved every minute of it. It's a great community. Connecticut's a great place. And so this has become my real home. I worked in the DOJ for 31 years. I could talk to you all afterwards a little bit. I encountered a little bit of speech suppression myself there when I tried to speak out about Palestinian terrorism, and I almost lost my job in 2011. Fortunately, some good people stood up for me, because as we all know, there are certain things you cannot say in America if the authorities don't like it, which is not the way this country was built. What you all are fighting for is core, in my view, to the flourishing and survival of free civilization on the planet. I think there are a few more important battles in the world going on today than what's happening in America, in the Anglophone world, to protect speech, to protect the culture that built freedom in America, in the world. And I was listening on the drive up here, actually, to Kemi Badenoch, the new leader of the Conservative Party in England. Her interview with Barry Weiss is just outstanding. Grew up in Nigeria, moved to England, and she's just a beacon of freedom. She's a native of Africa who says CRT and DEI are crushing our kids, and we have to stop it. And anyways, there were good things happening out there. Before I get on to the part that I was going to discuss on the panel with Dave and company, I want to tell you that amid all the hard news we face about this battle and that battle and how we can't get the school boards to change, there was some great news today, and some of you probably heard it. The President-elect's team for the Department of Justice has announced their new pick to head up the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. Harmeet Dillon, one of the great fighters for freedom in America. She has been fighting DEI. She literally sued California for the no parental notice for gender transition in schools. She knows these issues as well. She's a brilliant attorney, and she is going to be a force. She's going to be like a tornado when she hits the Department of Justice. I saw that, and I just broke out in a smile, because I think all of us have been feeling, is there room left for the common sense that's being tossed aside? And we're seeing it one after another, these nominees, these appointees, and Harmeet Dillon. There's some good stuff going to be happening in the coming years. So thank God for that. I guess I should start with what I came, so I remember what I had to say. I was going to talk about our efforts in the Amity School District on how that led us to propose statewide statutory legislation, which I want to get into just a little bit with you all. I only plan to talk about 5 minutes, and then Dave and the others will talk, and then we'll do Q&A. So I'll try to make it brief. I got involved in this 2 years ago when the Amity Regional School District, which is Woodbridge, Orange, and Bethany, announced in their public declaration of their proposed budget for the year that they're going to take a teacher out of the service line and put this person in as a new DEI coach for Amity Regional High School. Now, I had a daughter that had already graduated. I had a son who was in Amity Regional High, and I think educationally they had great programs. They had some fine courses and teachers and all that. But when I heard that, I and a few neighbors got very concerned, because we were seeing that as people who believe in the promise of America, that anybody can be an American and a patriot and a contributor to the community, no matter what you look like, your color, your religion, your ethnic background, we're all in this team together. And we believe in that very deeply. You know, my mom marched against George Wallace when he ran for president in '68 on the segregation platform. It's like, hey, I'm down with we're all at the table together. But DEI is not that. It's the opposite. In fact, I've published op-eds saying DEI is actually taking us back down the tribalist rabbit hole, where we judge people by their group and their color and their skin, and not by their character. And it's actually a rejection of Dr. Martin Luther King's prophetic claim, I dream of the day when my children will be judged by the content of their character and not by the color of their skin. We are the ones defending Dr. King's legacy. The left are the ones who are tossing it in the trash in order to form a kind of ethno-hierarchy. I'm sure some of them may think they have good intentions, but we've all seen, if you study Yugoslavia after its breakup, you study Rwanda and the ethnic tribalism there, these things always end badly. That's why, as Kemi Badenoch says, as the hopefully future Prime Minister of Britain, this stuff is not helping poor kids and minority kids, it's actually hurting them. Anyways, with that background, that's why I and some other parents got involved. I said, no, this is not the way to do this. We started doing FOIA requests. We did 2 extensive FOIA requests. There's still thousands of pages we haven't fully gone through reviewing. We have spoken at dozens of school board meetings, as I'm sure you all have as well, during the open mic or public comment session, time and time again. We have drafted letters, quasi-petitions that have gotten, 20, 50, 70, 100 signatures and sent them to the school board saying this is not the way to go. There's a different way to do inclusion, et cetera, in a way that works and is consistent with American principles. We did all this stuff. And the response from our elected representatives and the Amity Regional School Board was a deafening silence. I'm sure a lot of you have encountered this in your respective battles with your school boards, right? I felt like we were almost perceived as some kind of flea in the sleeve that had to be flipped away while they got back to the business of creating this utopian society. Anyways, having studied all this, I had been following this just for some time for the Amity Regional District, and found this stuff is really, it used to be in the universities, and now it's filtering down to K through 12 education. Let me ask by show of hands, how many of you have heard of the Liberated Ethnic Studies curriculum in California? Anybody heard of that? Yeah, this thing is scary. This is done by a bunch of ethnic studies professors. Again, America's all about different ethnic groups coming together and building a great country. This is not anti-immigrant, this is not anti-ethnicity, this is pro-shared freedom and democracy. Anyways, the Liberated Ethnic Studies curriculum basically teaches the whole CRT thing. It puts it on steroids. It's also very much about let's dismantle Israel, that terrible colonial ethno-state, things like that. It is now mandatory in California schools. In fact, I think the bill passed, I might be wrong, that to apply for any California state university, you have to have taken an ethnic studies course in high school with this hard left-wing curriculum. Massachusetts, there's groups lobbying to embrace the ethnic studies curriculum there. As I pointed out to some of my friends during the last campaign, there's a state on the Midwest where the governor signed a bill mandating the Liberated Ethnic Studies radical left curriculum be taught in every school in his state. That governor's name is Tim Walz. So, yeah, where did that get covered in the media, right? This was just very important information relevant to making a decision on this guy's qualification to lead America, and it's a battle for freedom. So anyways, having studied all this stuff and watched also this idea of we can change kids' genders in school and don't tell the parents about it, we got really concerned at the deafening silence from our school board representatives. So a few of us said, you know something, maybe Florida had it right, where Governor DeSantis got to stop poll tax statute. Maybe these other states that are doing this have it right, that much as we believe in local democracy, much more than some mass and centralized government if possible, and it's just not working. So I sat down with a few folks and said, look, I'm a retired lawyer, I'm going to draft a statute, I'm going to research the Florida statute, I'm going to research March for Liberty and No Left Turn. There's all these draft proposed statutes, and I put one together. And I made sure that in my draft, it does not in any way clamp down on free speech. No judge could say this statute violates the First Amendment, because while prohibiting the ideological indoctrination of kids in our public schools and colleges, it also specifically says nothing in here shall be understood to prohibit teaching and discussion of slavery, Jim Crow, racial disparities, and what causes them and what we could, if anything, do about them. You know, it's a very fair statute. But I'm going to tell you what it basically says, because what we did in last fall, and this was a huge, I got together with the folks, with Dave Holman's great group, Greater Education Council. We talked with the folks in Greenwich Patriots. We talked to folks in a few of the towns. There's a school board member, Gail Harris, up in West Hartford. We kind of made contact with folks who knew who were working on these things. And we said, hey, you know what? If we all write to our reps and senators and rep and senate candidates, maybe we can build a little support for this. The key point was we consulted with State Senator Rob Sampson, who is fantastic. He himself had submitted a Stop Woke Act statute to the Connecticut legislature in the past year. It didn't go anywhere because this is, Republican minority, Dems oppose this stuff, etc. But we had the good fortune of meeting with Senator Sampson, showed him our draft statute, and he liked it. He made some suggestions, which we followed and revised. He said, basically, don't put too much in any one statute. It gets so top-heavy and trying to get votes. He said, do your anti-ideological indoctrination in one statute, and do your parental access rights and notice of healthcare issues and another statute. So that's what we did. But Rob Sampson has said, you send me the drafts of those two statutes, and in January of 2025, I'll submit them to the Connecticut legislature. We'll have our battle over a Stop Woke Act here in Connecticut. He was very frank and realistic about it. He said, unless we got a major change in popular opinion, it's not going to pass, but we can at least start the battle. And that's what our goal was. His point is, for things that are presently relatively unpopular in a legislature, only when they see that people are really fed up with the way things are and are insisting on change, well, they might start changing their approaches. And so what we did during this past election season, again, it was a shoestring operation. We put together the email for every candidate who was running for office in state legislature or state senate. And we distributed them on our own and other groups. And we sent copies, I just emailed copies of the two statutes on an explanatory memo to everyone and said, here's a draft email you can send to anybody on the state representatives and senators list. And if we made a common shared document where people could report, I've emailed this one, I've emailed that one, and keep track. I've managed to reach every Republican incumbent state house and state senate in Connecticut, saying this is why we advocate for this statute. This is a real problem that's coming into and flooding our school districts. These statutes do protect First Amendment rights while also protecting the education system against this frankly radical indoctrination. A few folks wrote back and said, I totally endorse this. Rob Sampson endorses it. But now that we have a new legislature elected, my thought is maybe we can try this again. When Rob Sampson introduces the two statutes, we could have members of this group here, Greenwich Patriots, Greater Education Council Connecticut, our Amity Regional School District called the Amity Advocates. And again, try to just inundate our reps and senators with support for this kind of legislation. So I've already talked a little too long, so I'm just going to sum up briefly the legislation we propose. It's, like I said, it's an extraction from the country. So the first statute says it prohibits discriminatory ideological indoctrination and compelled speech, which is a violation of the First Amendment, throughout public and K-12 schools and colleges, in teaching, in staff training, and in hiring and promotion decisions. You know, those diversity statements you get assigned and hired by school these days. Nah, you can't force that down people's throats to get a job in America. So it prohibits curriculum and content and student and teacher training sessions and employment decisions, which would require that a person, it's almost like a loyalty oath. You submit your loyalty and belief in these kinds of theories. All white people are complicit in oppressive structural racism. All black people are victims of oppressive structural racism. The sole cause of average group disparities in academics, income, etc. is racism and only racism. You can discuss this, you can debate it, but you cannot force people to swear to this as truth or get an F on their exam or not get hired to teach. Because these are really hotly debated sociological questions. And hey, I'll debate anybody on this. I've done my homework, and if they want to talk me off religion, saying, well, go ahead. Don't make me swear to this. The second statute says parents have a right to access curriculum, and the schools need to make this very feasibly available. So parents need to be able to request and access curriculum materials and take a look at them. And the Parents' Rights statute says there must be notice to and consent by parents for any medical or psychological intervention by the schools. Now, emergencies are accepted. You know, some kid, you know, big cut, you gotta put a bandage on, do it, then call the parent, you know? But this also includes specifically any attempt at gender transition. So you can't do this no-notice gender transition thing. Hey, hide it from the parent, boys have to become a girl, or vice versa. Okay? Anyways, that's what Senator Sampson's going to introduce. We're going to try to work it. I would love to talk with folks afterwards, and maybe if it's possible for me to get an email list, just share with you these materials. No obligation, just give you the option to write your representative or whatever. So what I'm proposing to do is if I can get emails from folks in the group or through Linda and the leaders of the group, I can send the statutes, the short explanatory memo. And by the way, it's really easy to contact reps and senators in Connecticut. Have you heard of the CBIA? It's the Connecticut Business and Industry Association. If you Google CBIA legislature, boom, you'll get a screen that has every rep and senator and their email address. You can just choose which one you want. Anyways, that's our thought. Maybe we can change the law. And I don't want to take away from Armin and Dave, but
They are a stalwart.
Yes.
For fighting against the legislation.
excellent point. I have tried to include that on emails. I don't think I've got everyone, but that's a great reminder.
I'd be happy to help you with that.
Great, that's fantastic. Let's talk afterwards.
Okay.
And, the Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism, FAIR, which has a Connecticut chapter, Janelle Rhodes has been working with us. She's the one who said, talk to Rob Sampson, he's great. Yeah, we're trying to bring everybody together on this, for sure.
And if I could just mention one other thing, and not to steal the show, but tomorrow evening at 4 o'clock, Family Institute of Connecticut is putting on a gender extremism webinar. So if anybody's interested, if you need anything else, I'm happy to send you a link if you'd like to participate, because it connects directly with the work that you're doing. So I appreciate
Just thank you again. What you're all doing, critical work, is fantastic.
All right, so Hank, I just had a really quick question.
Yes, sir.
Did you hear about this Supreme Court ruling that just came out against the parents?
Oh, did it literally just come out today?
Yeah, it said the parents had no standing. The Supreme Court.
Wow.
All right, there's something wrong here. I don't understand it.
I agree, because the concept of standing, employees don't know this, is are you being in any way harmed or potentially harmed by the act in question? If you are, or you could be, then you are standing. So are they saying a parent is not in any way harmed when their child is being subjected to these intrusions on parental?
The only thing I can say is I quickly glanced at this article. I don't know who wrote it. I don't know where it came from. Obviously, it's from the New York Times. You can't trust it.
Fake news.
Saying,
That's, to me, a complete abuse of the standing
yeah,
concept.
makes me.
And that's why I'm so glad Harmeet Dillon's going to be heading up DOJ Civil Rights, because she will fight that with the nail.
Hi, Hank.
Sir?
Sorry we were late. We had so much traffic, you can't believe it.
Oh, we believe it.
Anyway, my name is Dave Holman. I'm from Guilford. I'm a member of the Greater Education Council of Connecticut. We formed about a year and a half ago. Court Rotnowski is our chairman, and Armin and Hank are in it also, so thank you for inviting us tonight. Just going to read our mission statement, just so you get an idea of who we are. It is the mission of the Greater Education Council of Connecticut to facilitate, coordinate, and communicate a united statewide effort to educate, expose, and prevent the woke indoctrination and sexualization of all children in the education system of the state of Connecticut, to protect the individual dignity of children by supporting their right to an education free from ideological and political indoctrination, to restore traditional curriculum and academic excellence to education, to recenter public education concerning race relations around Dr. Martin Luther King's dream of a colorblind society in which all children will be judged by the content of their character and not by the color of their skin, and to ensure that an unrestricted right to school choice is available to all parents and students. So we met, and there's lots of groups around Connecticut fighting the various battles, but there's nobody's working together, so that's why we formed our group. Mm-hmm. So anyway, for 30 years I listened to Rush Limbaugh. Mm-hmm. I was a ditto head. I was a member of the EIB, Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies. I was a salesman, so I got to listen to the radio in between sales calls and when I was working inside on quotes. And I knew all about DEI and CRT before anybody had heard of this stuff, all right? So when I retired at the end of 2018, I started writing letters to papers, and that was my introduction into this. But I was walking my dog one day. It was September 27, 2020, and I'm in a neighborhood with not much through traffic. And there were kids, little kids, in the middle of the street making chalk drawings. So when we got close, I saw what they were writing. Black Lives Matter, hands up, don't shoot, equal pay. It was unbelievable to me. So when I went home, I did something I never did before. I called the first selectman in our town. And I said, I want to volunteer to look at the textbooks we're using in the schools. I figured that these kids were getting it from school. So he said, you don't want to talk to me, you want to talk to the superintendent of schools. And I ended up having an email conversation. His name was Paul Freeman. He's still the superintendent of schools.
And he's terrible.
He's terrible, absolutely right.
He's probably the worst one in the state.
Exactly right. So I asked him, I said, Paul, I want to know if we're teaching critical race theory in Guilford schools, if we're teaching the 1619 theory. I want to know if we're using Black Lives Matter textbooks in school. So he sends me back an email, and he says, although we don't directly reference CRT and the 1619 theory in our curriculum, he says, I consider them both valuable approaches to teaching American history. He said, as far as textbooks go, he said, I bought White Fragility and a book called Waking Up White by a woman named Debbie Irving, and I bought 10 copies each, and they shared them with the school leadership team in Guilford. 10 of them read one of the books, and 10 of them read the other, and then they switched. He said, I also bought 300 copies of Ibram Kendi's How to Be an Anti-Racist and gave it to every single teacher in the school district. I was shocked. I was shocked. He also did a joint event with Madison and a place called the New School with a woman named Margaret Hagerman. And she wrote a book called White Kids. So I was involved at that point. He had a, you're not going to believe this, there's an outfit called, there's a website in Guilford called slaveryinguilford.org. Slaveryinguilford.org. It was started by this guy who started a program called the Witness Stones, all right? And his goal was to put a brick in front of every house and business in Guilford where slaves once lived. And they have this series called Witness to History, Slavery in Guilford. And on April 21st, 2021, Superintendent Paul Freeman gave a talk, all right? It was a Zoom lecture put on by the Guilford Library, and he just laid out his whole program, which he called his Equity and Social Justice program. We have done a, Linda, do you have those handouts?
Yeah.
We have done a film where we documented Board of Education meetings and the different consultants that Guilford has used, and it's called Just the Facts, Parental Rights. The website is...
We do one field, I don't know if we'll have enough, okay?
Okay. The website is on that sheet for the Guilford school system and also the Greater Education Council of Connecticut. If you go there, you can look at this, but you can also access this if you go to youtube.com and put in just the facts, parental rights. you're not going to believe what you see in this. The point is, this is what is prevalent in school systems around Connecticut now. Nobody knows this stuff. You need to go to your school website and look around. All right, look around. Now, on this handout that I gave you, I'm giving you places to look for this stuff. The first thing is I said scour your school website, and I'm going to give you an example of how varied this stuff is and how you really have to look at everything, all right? On the Guilford School website, there are categories across the top, and the first one says district. So you click on district, and you go down to employment. And they have 6 videos in there about why a teacher would want to be a teacher in the Guilford school system. One of them is entitled Teaching in an Equity-Focused District. This is what Superintendent Paul Freeman says in this video. We want to talk to students about historical and current examples of racism. He believes this stuff. He believes in systemic racism and institutional racism. No problem with that. Another video was entitled The Top 6 Reasons to Work in Guilford Public Schools. In this video, the Guilford Board of Education Chairman, Kathleen Balistrassi, says, we make sure our teachers are comfortable and skillful in addressing challenging and important topics like historical and current systemic racism. So, I didn't stop there. I looked at the credits, and this was produced by an outfit called Insight Education Group. Insight Education Group. Now, I know that Paul Freeman, this was the first consultant that they hired, all right? So I went to their website. You go in there, you click on About, then click on About Insight, and then you click on Our Core Values. Let me read you some of this stuff. Equity is the driving force behind all of our decisions, including hiring diverse professionals, empowering teachers and school leaders, creating tools and culturally responsive resources, and participating in and facilitating conversations around bias, prejudice, and race. We will forever be champions of equity. At IEG, we acknowledge that systemic racism exists, so we prioritize equity as the driving force behind all our decisions. We believe education empowers individuals to disrupt the impact of systemic racism. We hire diverse race-conscious educators who engage in intentional, ongoing development of self rooted in the tenets of anti-racism. This is Ibram Kendi. We work relentlessly with our partners to understand the same stuff from all these consultants that they hired. So anyway, on this sheet, I give you examples of where to look for this stuff if you're just getting into it. You got to watch every Board of Education meeting. In January of 2022, well, before that, they hired this guy to do an equity audit of social studies and English language arts, grades 5 through 12 in Guilford. He gave his report at the end of January 2022. $25,000, he produced a report that was 22 pages double spaced. And he didn't come up with specific recommendations on textbooks or anything like that. What he came up with was 5 general things. And one of them was that we redo the teacher evaluation system. In other words, make it mandatory that they teach this equity and social justice stuff. Mandatory. So I was watching the Board of Education meeting this past June. What happened at that meeting? the Board of Education approved a new educator evaluation plan. Educator evaluation plan. So, I looked it up. And the first paragraph in this educator evaluation plan, it said, our foundational belief is equity. Foundational belief is equity. We believe that all students have the right to high-quality instruction that fosters attainment of Guilford's Portrait of a Graduate competencies. Does everybody know what Portrait of a Graduate is? They are, check your school website, see if they're doing this stuff. In Guilford's case, it's 6 woke competencies that have nothing to do with being proficient in English or math or science or reading or any of that stuff.
Dave, could I add anything about that? About Portrait of a Graduate?
Go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, we got a couple of projects going on Portrait of a Graduate, but just to give you a quick background on it, if you're not familiar with it. There's a group, it's called the Battelle Memorial Research Institute. It's in Cincinnati, Ohio. In any event, for years they've been mostly doing engineering work and stuff like that for the government. They spawned this little group that's concerned with education. And since at least the early 2000s, they have been pitching this idea of Portrait of a Graduate. And it's been funny to watch it because this came before Common Core did, and if anybody remembers Common Core, so these guys, now they're trying to glom on with that, take some of their ideas. It's like, who are these people? What's wrong with you? Nonetheless, they persisted. And they managed to come up with a program. I think they started to make traction, I want to say 2018 or so. So the basic idea behind it is that you try to build your educational curriculum in the school around 6 or some set of principles. In researching different schools, there can be slight variations. They kind of look at each school and say, well, you come up with your ideas. But the problem with this is it's a top-down approach. Hi, Santa.
Merry Christmas!
Happy New Year!
For all the good boys and girls.
You've
grown up so fast.
Can we ask for a new superintendent in Guilford?
Right under the tree.
Okay, so then, so Portrait of a Graduate, it's based on these principles, and then they supposedly build a curriculum based on this. That always involves a stakeholder to put something together, but we're still looking for the beef. Where's the beef? We can't find it. But this is very, very popular. A lot of school systems in Connecticut have grabbed onto it, and it's just one more thing that has to be killed.
Thank you, Court. So let me just read these 6 woke competencies. Adaptable learner, responsible collaborator, effective communicator, critical thinker, empathetic individual, and global citizen. And the test scores are going down. Armin's going to get into that when he talks. No, let's see here. This belief is deeply rooted in Guilford community as evidenced by the Guilford Board of Education statements addressing equity and social justice. We were making so much noise at the beginning of 2021 that the Board of Education felt they had to come out with a statement in support of the superintendent's equity and social justice initiative. I just wrote down a few lines from this statement. The Guilford BOE and Superintendent Paul Freeman made a commitment to our students and our community to better address instruction and school culture regarding issues of social justice and institutional racism. Institutional racism is part of American history, and educators must explicitly address this reality and create a culture that helps eradicate it moving forward. Unbelievable, right? Okay, reading from this first paragraph. It is further supported by community organizations like Guilford's Human Rights Commission. Can you believe that Guilford has a Human Rights Commission? This is an official commission for the town, all right? They are funded by the town, and this commission paid a $700 stipend to sponsor a transgender woman called Jillian Celentano, a female transgender woman who was an outspoken advocate for gender-affirming care for children in grade school, to come and speak at the Guilford Community Center. When I found out about this was in 2022, October. They'd already had the event, I didn't know about it. When I found out about it, I contacted them, and I have a friend who is a conservative transgender woman who does not believe in gender-affirming care for kids, all right? Christine Redstock is her name.
Hey, Christine.
Yes. And, they refused to let her speak. I said, look, you're a town-funded organization, you paid this stipend, you got to present the other side. They absolutely refused. All right, listen to this. And Guilford's anti-bias, anti-racism alliance. Can you believe that Guilford has an anti-bias, anti-racism alliance? You should look, I think I put their website in here. You should look this up. You go to this website, they have a silhouette graph of kids from 3 months old to 6 years old, and they say how racist these white kids are at every age. This is unbelievable. This is in the first paragraph of the new educator evaluation plan. I guarantee you this stuff is going on in your school systems. You have to look for this stuff. All right, so check out the website, the Board of Education website. Analyze your town BOE manual. See what's in there. See if they're doing what is in this manual. Analyze the textbooks and the curriculums being used at your school. All right, I did a freedom of actually it wasn't a freedom of information. They gave it to me, but I asked for all the textbooks they were using in English language arts and social science. You won't believe what stuff is in there. All right, do it. Check this stuff out. It takes time, but it's worth it. Analyze, this is key, analyze the training materials used by consultants and teachers, teacher and administrator training. They're not going to tell you what they're doing. This will be a Freedom of Information Act request, but you need to do it. Whether they're from Harvard or this Insight Education Group, you got to find out what they're teaching the teachers and the administrators, because guaranteed that stuff is getting passed on to the kids.
Dave, can I just note here?
To work with the Guilford School Leadership Team to establish a systems framework for culturally responsive, sustaining, and equitable leadership. You know what she said? And you'll see this in the film when you watch it. This systems framework is straightly aligned with Kendi's How to Be an Anti-Racist. This is unbelievable. Research your local teachers unions, all right? Check out the website for the Connecticut Education Association, the National Education Association. You're not going to believe what you see there. I know the Guilford Education Association, the teachers union associated with the NEA, they put out, we in Guilford, we ran a slate of 5 candidates for the Board of Education. This was back in 2021. And the GEA, Guilford Education Association, they put out a questionnaire to all the candidates. Listen to some of these questions that they asked, all right? Will you oppose all proposals that would censor teachers from teaching about inclusion, diversity, and equity? Will you pledge to include the local teachers union in discussions surrounding all matters related to your local school district, its schools, and its funding? The Board of Education is supposed to work for us, the citizens, not for the teachers union, all right? Familiarize yourself with the educational statutes of the state of Connecticut. Look what's in there, all right? See, they're woke too. They're very woke, but probably not as woke as your local school system. So check that out. Now, the one thing I left off of here was the library. Check out your library, all right? In Guilford, they have a Big Hearts book club for kids 5 through 8, all right? What kind of subjects do they discuss with these 5 to 8-year-olds? Gender diversity, all right? That's one of them. Can you believe that? They have a Writing Injustice book discussion series. They have these authors come in to say how unjust books are, all right? Then they also sponsor this Witness to History, Slavery in Guilford. So get up to speed, check it out. Check out this stuff. You're not going to believe what you find. And if you find this stuff, start exposing it. These people do not like to be exposed. Yes.
Dave, thank you so much for all that information, and I'm all worked up. Thanks so much. I have a heart condition too. Thank you. Seriously, is it your experience that part of the major reason that the boards of ed are pushing this is because they get funding from the feds, and that funding can be taken away if they don't teach it?
It's a factor. Remember, ESSER funding is what you're talking about, right?
Pardon me?
ESSER funding?
Yeah, the funding, the reason they're pushing this, in my experience, is because they get funded from the feds, and it's taken away if they don't.
Well, the guy who was Secretary of Education, his name was Miguel Cordona, and he was from Connecticut. He was an advocate for all of this stuff. So yes, a lot of this stuff is coming down from the federal government. That'll all change with Trump. He'll defund all of these things. But no, I don't know if that's the case.
Okay.
I don't know if that's the case in Guilford.
Thank you.
I can address policy from the Department of Ed, however, pressing on local school districts. There were 2 initiatives from the Federal Department of Education Civil Rights Office that have been pushed onto local school districts under President Obama and again under President Biden. Number one, that
there was a transgender teacher who was the union rep from the high school. And she was going to dye her hair the colors of the rainbow and go to graduation like that. And Bill sent an email to the principal of the high school and said, graduation is for the kids. She shouldn't be making a political statement. And if she does, there'll be hell to pay. That's what he said. And they took that as a threat, and they charged him with a felony, and he could have went to jail for 5 years. He went to jail for 5 years. Now, the superintendent, the police chief, the principal of high school, they all testified at his trial, and they all trashed Bill. It was a travesty.
You should have seen him today. It was the principal, Freeman, and then the teacher.
Yeah.
And they stood there with tears, and they acted like he was going to shoot up the school at graduation.
Yeah.
With tears in their eyes. They
Yeah.
were all afraid for their life.
They made it so that they said this threat was against everybody in the school community. That's what they
It
did.
was such an acting job. It was
Yep.
terrible.
Yep. All right, so this is Armin Fusco. Armin is the former superintendent of schools in Branford and Hadley, Mass. He's written many books, one on school safety. He's got another one that's coming out pretty quick. And he's been our mentor with the Greater Education Council of Connecticut. One of the things you're gonna, if you go to our website, one of the things you're gonna see is a cease and desist letter that we wrote to the Guilford Board of Education because we're saying their equity and social justice program was illegal, and because they had no district curriculum committee, and that because they were spending so much time on this, they ignored school safety laws. So Armin is the best. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm 92 years old. I shouldn't be doing this. I should be the rocking chair, not rocking the system. Let me tell you this. I cannot believe what is happening in our schools. I just can't believe it. These are not the kind of people I worked with for 40 years. So when you bring up something, you know, what's pushing it all? There's a conspiracy theory behind it, believe me. And it has to do with Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah.
They're behind a lot of this stuff that nobody considers. But there's so many pieces of this puzzle. We could spend all night here, so I'm going to cut through a lot of stuff just to give you the hardcore of what's happening, because I don't think you understand what's happening. I do this every day, education research. I can't keep up with it. So if I can't keep up with it, what can you do? What could the boards of ed do? What could the teachers do? They can't keep up with the avalanche of information. So let me start with something simple. What's the mission of a school? That's a simple thing to start with. Now, this is my mission, not what you find in the typical one. To provide a quality education. Everyone starts with that one. They forget the next word. None of them have the next word. It's got to be a neutral curriculum, not one full of ideologies or concepts or claims or theories. It's got to be factual and neutral. And I'll give you a couple of quotes that you'll find interesting shortly. And for all students, ensuring that they achieve proficiency. You don't see that in the typical mission statement. And you're going to see what that really means in a short while. In academic subjects such as reading and math, as well as civic and social skills, and graduating from high school equipped to achieve success in future life endeavors and becoming a productive member of society. That's my simple mission statement. So let's get to some fun stuff. I'm going to give you 3 quotes from somebody who's smarter than I am. There's some people like that. Education should be the ultimate nonpartisan or bipartisan issue. There should be nothing Republican or Democrat about giving a child a chance to get a great education. Simple enough, except there's a but. You hear none of that conversation coming from the District of Columbia, the White House. You just see ideological battles. That's what we're talking about. It's nothing about helping to educate for the better. Pretty straightforward. Well, you find out who said this. In another venue, the same person. He said, before Congress, he said this, 83% of the schools are failing schools. 83%. What he was referring to specifically was the fact that there's been no academic growth, as you're going to see shortly. And the third one you're going to love. When he got out of his office, and I'll tell you what that office was, he wrote a book. And the first chapter was, Education Runs on Lies. And that says it all. It's full of lies. All kinds of lies. We could spend all night on just talking about the kind of lies they tell. They can do that they can't do or don't want to do. Now, who was this guy? The U.S. Secretary of Education, appointed by Obama. He was a Democrat from 2009 to 2016. So they were opposed to what's happening right now, yet they did nothing about it. He had an opportunity, he was the former superintendent in Chicago. Now I'm going to pass out a couple of items. One is going to be a series of charts. Make sure you get these two.
Oh, there's more than one page.
Got something different.
Oh, gee.
Oh,
Wait a minute, wait a minute.
Oh, yeah. 2 pages. Oh, boy, no, I don't think so. That's different.
Are they separate?
Get one of these. Yeah. Is there this one? Or you got more?
I don't have many of this.
They're all the same.
They're all the same?
We don't have many of the second one. Is this?
Oh, no, not
All
that.
right, we don't need this.
No, not that.
We don't need this.
It's just a chart. It's got charts on it.
Okay, just the charts. Okay.
Yeah. You could do. Everybody got this one? No? You guys got this one?
Just passing that. They're sticking together. One for family again? No, I think you can both have one. You can all have one.
I can hand it out to 500 more
Okay, let me explain the chart sheet. There's 4 charts. The first one tells the whole story, and it's been telling the same story since 1970. Nothing has changed. You see 3 graph lines. The blue one is the cost of education. You can see it's a 45-degree angle going straight to the stratosphere. There's no end in sight. The way it's going to increase, no matter what the results are, makes no difference. Second is the red line, and that's the increase in teaching staff, and I'll show you why that occurs. But the nice part of this graph is at the bottom. The little wiggly lines. You know what they are? National and international test results from 1970 to 2010 that have not grown 1 iota. No growth in the test scores. None. 0. Flat. All the money being spent, more teachers being added, and no growth in test scores, as I'm going to show you. The next graph shows you what's happened with teacher-pupil ratio, or class size. It's gone from 28 down to 14, so it's been cut in half. That's what teachers wanted. Cut the class size in half. They got it. What did they do with it? Nothing. Nothing. You know, it just gets to me. The third one. I'm going to use this on somebody. On Freeman. The third one shows you what's happening with teacher aides. The blue one is the teacher, the small one there on the left is the teacher compared to the aide. That's 1 aide to every 4 teachers. That's what it used to be. Now you see the next one next to it, it's almost 1 to 1. So it's no longer 1 teacher in the classroom, there's 2 adults. If you do 2 adults, that means class size ratio is 7, not 14. Around here, these districts, well, for Connecticut, it's down to 13. Around here, you're going to get class sizes of 10 to 8. That's realistic. And I'll show you where to get that information from. The bottom graph shows what's happened with the test scores. They were wiggly, doing nothing for some 30 years. Now they're doing something, except in the wrong direction. They're going down. not up. More money, less, more teachers, smaller class sizes. What are you getting for results? Zero. Zero. Now, what are these results? You know what the National Assessment of Educational Progress is? It's called the nation's report card. That's what reports to Congress what the schools are doing. They tested grades 4, 8, and 12 every 2 years. And the only way they report it, parents don't get this information. The only way they report it is to say how many students are achieving proficiency in reading and math. What that means is, are they at grade level? See, that's the thing you should all be looking for. What is my child's grade level? Not report card grades, as I'm going to show you. Don't go by report card grades, because it's grade inflation with report card grades. So that's what's happening in terms of the school systems. Now, let's get to specific scores. That National Assessment Test 2022 is a national disaster. It should be a national emergency. Only 25% of the students achieve proficiency in mathematics. Translated, it means that 75% are below proficiency, and you translate that to actual student numbers, and that means 35 million are below proficiency in mathematics in the United States of America. With all of that increase in costs, all of that added staff means absolutely nothing. They'd all be out of business. They'd all be bankrupt. The reading is just as bad. It's 33% who are proficient in reading. That means 67% are not. That means 30 million students. That's nationally. Well, let's bring it to Connecticut. You know what? It's almost identical. Connecticut has 500,000 students. Mathematically, 350,000 are below math and 300,000 below in reading. This is a national emergency. It's a national disgrace.
Yes, it is.
Any test you look at, any test, including your SAT, has been declining. The only reason why it's not showing up as much in SAT is because they recalibrated it about a few years ago to make it look better than it is. But even at that, they've lost 27 points since they recalibrated. If you compare us globally, we used to be among the top 5 of 28 developed countries. Now we're the bottom 4. Bottom 4, that's where we are. Anything you look at shows that education is in a free fall. And yet everybody, oh, we got to give them more money because it's our kids. We go out want it for our kids. The kids are not learning. Now, let me give you some aside kind of what I call disruptors. Let's look at school shootings. That's something that everybody's concerned about, right? School shootings. We've had them here in Connecticut. Does anybody ask, there's a couple of quick questions. Who are the shooters and where do the shootings occur? The shootings occur in suburbia. They do not occur in the cities. Find a city with a shooting. They're all suburban, rural schools. Who are the shooters? They're not minority kids who are supposed to be angry and everything else. They're white males. There's a handful of girls, but basically all white males. What are they angry about coming from suburban schools? Nobody has researched that. Nobody. Now, why do I say schools are not safe? That was my latest book. You think of the first thing that they do in schools with a shooting is wait for the first responders, right? We got to get the first responders in. By the time they show up, the damage is all done. They're not the first responders. Who are the first responders? The students and the teachers. They're the ones who need protection, and they have none. You know what they're told? Run and hide. Where the hell are they going to run and hide? There's no place to escape. And how do you know you're not going to the shooter? Now, no plan have any self-defense mechanisms for the teachers or the students. Can it be done non-lethally? Absolutely. I have 100 pages in my book describing what can be done non-lethal approaches. And I'll give you a simple one. You're all familiar with what police have with a pepper spray, right? That's close in. But they have a rifle that will shoot that pepper spray 18 feet. What's wrong with letting some of those rifles be left in the classrooms and training some of the older kids to be able to use those along with the teachers? That's just one item. I've got a whole bunch of items. Where are they supposed to escape? There's no place to escape except in the hallway. You need a window. That's a doorway outside the building. A window door. That's another safety issue you don't see. There's all kinds of safety issues they could put into place, but they keep concentrating on the first responders. The latest shooting, or one of the latest shootings in Uvalde, Texas. 374 armed guards were outside the classroom while the kids were being shot. Because why? The police chief said, we didn't know who was in charge. And he was right. Your plan's supposed to have somebody in charge so that they can tell the first responders what's happening and what they've done and what they're doing. So the first responders always have to wait figuring out what's happening. So that's just, another side issue in terms of what's happening in our schools. Safety is not safety in schools anymore because of all this crap we got to be teaching the kids. And they're not learning anything that they're supposed to be learning. Now, how do you find grade level scores as parents? Or have you ever asked for grade level scores? No, I want to know per pupil ratio. That's got nothing to do with teaching. Nothing, as you can see. You want to know what the grade level is of the kid. And as you can see from the test scores, the grade levels are way down. So what you get for a grade level, possibly, is the state test, which is called the SBAC. And that test, it grades 3 through 8. But what you get is not a grade level score, you get a number. They're called scale scores. It goes from 2100 to 2500. What does that mean to you? Nothing. But there's a way to convert those numbers to grade level. One of the handouts, the 13-pager, has a conversion chart. So if you find, it's right on the first page, if you find the scale score, you can get your grade level. So if you have a student, for example, in grade 8, and they're scoring at 2100, that means they're doing grade 4 level. So it's easy to do once you get the scale score, and you're supposed to get that with SBAC. That's the what's it called?
Smarter balance.
Yeah, smarter balance test.
Assertion. Yeah.
Now, let's get to report card grades. Why do I tell you don't pay attention to report card grades? Just this year, a survey was done by the American College Testing Service, which is the equivalent of SAT. They use that mostly in the Midwest. What they did was compare the test scores with the number of A's and B's you get on report cards. And what they found was, as the scores decline, meaning going down, you get more A's and B's on report cards. Now, how do you get more A's and B's on report cards? Simple.
Inflation.
Before, you used to have 90 to 100 for an A, right? That's what y'all remember. Oh, but that was before. That's a little difficult. We don't get enough A's and B's. So let's do 85 to 100, and that's what's beginning to happen. That's just one way you improve or increase grade inflation. You manipulate test data. That's what Arden Duncan, the U.S. Secretary, was getting at in his book. The first thing about lies is they lie about testing to make it look better than it is. You could do that with a state test. 37 states have lowered their standards for state tests. 37 states, and they all don't have any idea what the standards are. Now, where is Connecticut all of this? If you rank Connecticut in terms of how they teach minorities versus white kids, you list all the states, where is Connecticut? Rock bottom. They're last on the list in teaching the minorities that they claim that they're helping, and that's what the Democrats claim because they run the cities, and the cities have the failing schools. What's a failing school? So you can go on with questions after questions after question. Basically, it means, depending on who does it, but basically what they're looking at is what they call the number of absences. If you're 3 weeks or more, that's a sign there's something wrong with the school. Now, we talk about slavery. We brought that issue up, slavery. Let me give you one line about slavery that you don't hear. All you hear is about black slavery, right? White slavery started sooner, lasted longer, and it was cheaper to buy a white slave than a black slave. Where do you get that information? Not from the schools. You only hear about black slavery. White slavery still exists, particularly for white women and children. Where were the worst possible child abuses was back in the early 1900s, when children were chained to their machines because they were treated as slaves. And they were white kids, not black kids. You don't read that from the schools. There's so much information that you only get one-sided pieces of information. You never get the other side. My first book, for example, was on school corruption. It occurs in every school. I'll go into any school and find school corruption. That drove the School Board Association and Superintendents Association crazy. They did everything to come after me. And when I went to prove it, they wouldn't want me to prove it. I said, pick 3 schools and I'll show you. They wouldn't do it. When they wanted a debate, I was willing to do it because the superintendent wanted to do it to try to show, both sides. They refused to debate me. That would be David against Goliath. And yet they refused because they knew how David and Goliath ended up. But Connecticut is known as the school with 2 districts, urban and suburban. The black kids have to attend failing schools by law. That's called bondage. Bondage is another term for slavery. The book I got coming out is Slave Schools. to describe what that's like, to be forced to be in a school that is not teaching you anything. I call it this: the cotton plantations have been replaced by the school plantations. There is no difference. There is no difference. I've been in those schools. I spent 10 years in the Bridgeport schools when I was at the University of Bridgeport. I know what that inner city schools are like. So this just gives you some idea of what's really going on out there that you don't pick up from any place. Because the media is not only asleep at the wheel, they don't even have the car. They're just handling the wheel. And the parents show that, as far as their parents are concerned, 72% say schools are going in the wrong direction. What more can you say? Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yes.
I have a list here, I've been handed by a certain person, of 3 potential governors of Connecticut in 2026. Demis Claridis, Heather Summers, Aaron Stewart. Tell me which one would be the best governor? Or are they all the same?
But others have other ideas. You know, someone else is suggesting Leo Levy for governor.
I didn't say that as a personal reference, but as a protagonist question. That's all.
Well, I mean, they are familiar with each of them, and they've got their strengths and weaknesses, that's all I'm going to say.
Well, you got to do your research into their position on CRT, DEI, then your eyes will be opened up like mine were.
Now, who gave you the thing on the communists?
Linda.
Linda, yeah. Oh,
There's okay, there's a fantastic film where the presenter is showing how Connecticut, specifically Connecticut, has really become communist in terms of the political arena, and then particularly the Democratic arena. All photographic evidence. He's not just making, statements. It's a fantastic film to watch because it's unbelievable what the Communist Party has done to this state and is doing now. It's not a question of a threat. They're doing it now. And behind that is the Communist Party of China.
Yeah.
They're behind a lot of this stuff.
Could I add something to that? Okay, so among my other activities, I'm a publisher for Yankee TV News, and we do a weekly Monday broadcast. And for 2 years, I did a special thing called Connecticut Comedy of the Week. And in the process of doing that, to reinforce what Armin was saying, every single member of the Connecticut delegation to Congress has some form of communist connection. It was shocking to see. Tony Walker, I think that's her name, Tony Walker, who used to be the mayor of New Haven, at least 6 affiliations.
Tony Hart.
Tony Hart, sorry, Tony Hart, right. And we do have something called the Connecticut Communist Party. And the Connecticut Communist Party is one of the oldest communist parties in the country. And anyway, who here's heard of Trevor Loudon? Any Trevor Loudon fans? Okay, so Trevor Loudon has devoted his life to researching all that is communism. And makes a point of the fact that Connecticut early on was picked as a strategic state in which to build out the Communist Party. So that meant taking over all the different facets that could be key institutions for the state. And yeah, no, it's a problem. Armin's absolutely right.
Any more questions?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you for the information because I, about a year ago, tried to find out what were the test scores.
Yeah.
Really hidden deep, so I really appreciate this.
That 13 page gives you all kinds of data about the test scores.
It takes a lot of work to find out.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you can tell that watching kids not knowing how to make change, they don't know how to read a clock, they can't spell. I mean,
Well, remember this about when I say the math scores are down, it's not math. We're talking 8th grade math, which is arithmetic, not mathematics. You're just talking calculations that they don't know. It's incredible.
I went in a local deli and I wanted to get a grinder. And I thought, for my husband, and I thought, well, they usually split it in half. And I thought, you know what, he can eat 2/3 and I can eat 1/3. So I said, cut. I saw them conferring in the corner. I got it split down the middle.
You had a question?
Yeah, I don't know if this is a microcosm of other states, but we went to many Board of Education meetings. And what we found there was what I see in this room. There's roughly 25 people here, and almost everyone is over is a senior. Where were the parents at these meetings?
Yeah,
We
that's a
saw
good
one
question.
parent. One. So where are they? It's the grandparents.
They're not educated.
Wait a minute, let me just defend the parents for a second.
Okay.
They're afraid to speak up because their kids get retaliated against.
Yes.
That's exactly what it is. And many people in the community here that wanted to come and be on Moms for Liberty, but they actually said, you know, if the school gets wind that we're supporting you, then they're going to retaliate against my child and blah, blah, blah. So unfortunately, even though a lot of the people that I know agree with everything that we're saying in this whole thing, because my children are all grown now, we have to fight for them. Because unfortunately, the parents can't do it because they're between a rock and a hard place. Very few parents like yourself will actually draw that line. Because the kids end up, they don't make the team, they don't, they're ostracized for this. You opt them out of a CRT class, they make it very uncomfortable then if they're the one or two that are opted out. And whose kid wants to look different?
In Guilford, in 2021, we had 5 parents that ran for the Board of Education. One of them was Bill Maizana. Their kids were vilified, all right? They were stabbed with pens, they were pushed over walls, they were accused of sexual assault. I mean, so much so that 3 of them filed a lawsuit in conjunction with a group called We the Patriots, all right? We the Patriots, that did it pro bono. But they expect to win that suit. And what they expect them to, this was a suit against the superintendent, the principal, and the Board of Education. So when they come to them to make a plea deal, they're going to ask all of them to resign, all right? And when they won't do it, they're going to ask for a cash settlement so large that it exceeds the insurance policy for the town, and then if they win, which they expect to, they're going to use that money to have a fund so that parents can do lawsuits against the school. It's going to be great. So, but what you're saying is absolutely right.
Let me add this because I think it's important. I lived in Guilford for 37 years. My wife was an assistant superintendent. Our whole life has been education. We always called Guilford the friendliest town on the shoreline until Freeman got onto his kick for CRT. And he's backed up by the board and the parents. And I don't understand what in God's name happened. Because the parents aren't screaming. All of this is going on, and of course they don't know a lot of this is going on. But even if they do, I don't know if they would do anything. I'll give you an example. A brother of one of the victims of the shooting that occurred in Connecticut ran for the Board of Education. He got shot down by the parents. Now you'd think he'd get elected because he understands what the problem is. But the parents didn't believe in them. I don't know
Parents
why.
need to be educated about it. They don't know. I just had 3 kids through Reach at 15, and they all experienced all this stuff, bad stuff, and I was trying to fight it the whole time. They need to be educated on how serious it is.
In Guilford, there has never been, I was there for 37 years, never been a racial incident that I could remember. The school system has never done a needs assessment to find out if there's a problem. The problem is only 40 black students, but I don't know if they're a problem at all because they don't tell us what those 40 are doing or not doing. Where's the systemic racism? They do exactly what all the white kids do in school. They're exposed to the same exact resources. They're not segregated in any way. So where is the systemic racism? It does not exist. And they still peddle all this crap.
And please go to those websites on the back of that handout that I gave you. Click on every single thing there. The Greater Education Council of CT.org, and also NoLeftTurnInGuilford.org, which preceded it. Click on everything and look at this stuff. You're not going to believe what's going on.
Well, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
What was it, in 1963, this lady came and said, I don't want prayer in school. The minute that happened, you took prayer, you took God out of school. This is when it all started. Who was left to come in? The people who had Satan. And that's what it's about. Because we are Judeo-Christian principles written in our Constitution, Bill of Rights, and Preamble. That is our nation. That was our forefathers. They didn't win this nation, our Revolutionary War, without prayer and fasting. God brought it about, not man. And we're not going to return our children back to how they should be as children. And to prayer is brought back. God Almighty has got to come back into our Constitution, into our school system again. Because we're not blessed. We are in Satan's world right now.
One state is mandating that all the schools put on every classroom the 10 Commandments. And it's going to the courts, and I doubt if the courts are going to substantiate it.
Well, we're going to have to pray and go back to God and repent for what we have done. Because our schools are not coming back until God is invited back to take over. That's it.
Now, let me leave you with the thing I think you need to do as a group. You are not going to have the power to do the changes that need to be done. It's got to bring everybody together, just like the School Board Association, Teachers Association, Superintendents Association. They all have a group. That's where they get their power from. The only way your parent power is going to happen is if the parents unite. Somebody has to start that.
So that's a perfect segue. I need to jump on that.
Okay.
The umbrella that he is referring to, of course, is the Greater Education Council of Connecticut.
Right.
I'm going to have my... Why are you laughing?
No, we're not laughing, it's true.
Boy, oh boy, we're going to put together an army of angry grandparents. Well, hold on, wait. So what I want to do, I'm going to put my notebook up there on the table afterwards, and everybody who wants, just please leave your name and email address. You're going to be in the loop. You're going to be informed constantly on what we're doing, and I'm going to be asking you to get involved, because I can tell you that we have more projects than people. We have more things that need to be done in order to build out and become a force in the state. Then we have people who can get it done. So we need your help. And I just want to add one last point. That everybody in this room, I don't need anybody else, just you people, right here, okay? Decide that you're in for this, we can change the state. This group right here, okay? Something to think about.
Court, Hank said something. Let me just, on that point you say, she made, that we need to be educated and get people educated on what's going on, and for the battle that we all want to fight. We have evidence on our side. The media doesn't report it generally, but there are exceptions. There is now tons of evidence that DEI and CRT not only do not work, they make things worse. 3 things to keep in mind. You can Google and find this stuff. 1, Harvard Business Review a few years ago did a meta-study of 800 plus corporate DEI programs. The results? Race relations worsened after nearly all those programs' administration. Number 2, and it's shocking the source, the New York Times in the past month published a massive study, I don't know who this journalist was or how he still has a job with the Times, about University of Michigan's massive DEI bureaucracy, hundreds of millions of dollars invested in this. It wrecked race relations at University of Michigan. This was an excellent article in the New York Times. It's worth getting a hold of. Number 3, just in the past 2 weeks, a big data analytics company, nonprofit called the Network Contagion Institute, did a massive study of DEI programs in schools and showed it always worsens the race relations and takes things downward. Evidence is on our side. All those folks with the signs that say science is science and push DRT, they're pushing hokum. We are the ones with the facts and the evidence. We will win.
Right. But the only way we're going to get there is through the courts. It's interesting. The only way.
Excuse me, I'd just like to thank everyone for coming. And there are books up here from Dr. Breen, if anybody would like them. And also,